Hey everyone, I'm Matt McEwan from SportsBettingDime.com, joined by Bob Wankel of SportsBettingDime.com and Crossing Broad. Bob and I are here to talk ESPN Bet, which just announced today they are launching November 14th. We're both very excited about it. And what we want to talk about today is what should other sportsbooks, how should other sportsbooks feel about this launch? Should they be concerned? What can the bettor expect to see from some of these other sports books around this launch as well? So, Bob, we spent some time already talking about just the benefits that ESPN has on their side of, whether it be broadcast, their other fantasy, just their website, their stats, their app, all that stuff, all that good stuff there that gives them a real leverage here in entering a sports betting market. What if you're DraftKings, if you're FanDuel, BetMGM, Caesars, these have been the kind of top sports books. Bet365, becoming a big player here as well. Fanatics about to enter the market as well, taking up the points bet. How should you feel? How would you feel in their shoes?
Well, competition's great for the consumer, right? But is competition great when you're the leader? When you're an industry leader that has gobbled up all this market share? I think it has to make you, at the very least, a little bit uncomfortable in that, Penn goes out and they make a significant investment in teaming up with ESPN here. It's an interesting development. One of the things that we talked about in our other videos is just the shakeup from an industry-wide standpoint. It's sort of exciting. Sometimes things can get a little bit stagnant. You can get desensitized to the same brands offering the same types of things again and again. And no knock on those brands, obviously, but just this injection of new life into the game is certainly something that I think has sent shockwaves through the industry. And it's something that other operators are going to have to consider. All right. We have a new player in town here, and it comes with one of the biggest brand names in sports attached to it. How are we going to combat this? And so are they losing sleep at night? I don't know, but certainly this is going to provide a challenge for the existing brands to try to combat and stave off ESPN Bet.
I mean, I think when Penn bought Barstool and launched Barstool Sportsbook there, I think that probably caused some concern among competition, right? That's you were getting such a loyal, engaged, passionate following with Barstool there, and it just didn't really take off, right? Smallish market share that they were able to capture. This, like you said, it's just totally different. This is, Bob, I think you said this prior. When you think sports, you think ESPN. And, they are now going to attempt, when you think sports betting, you think ESPN as well, right? So like you said, a little bit concerning for their competitors right now. But as you also said, they're great for the consumer. Anything you can share here, what do you think the bettor can expect from some of these other sports books on November 14th and beyond after ESPN Bet launches?
Well, conventional wisdom would tell you that everyone's going to have to step up their game a little bit, right? Like if you're tuning into that first Monday Night Football game post-launch, you're going to have Eagles-Chiefs on Monday Night Football. It's going to be one of the highest rated games of the year. And if they so choose, they can put that ESPN Bet brand all over the telecast. They can advertise for it. They can implement it into their pregame programming. You have an opportunity to really drive home your message to the audience. Now, I have no idea if they're going to do that. Like, one thing that remains to be seen is how aggressive will they be? To what degree will they implement the brand and the advertisements into their content and into their programming, into their advertising cycle? We have no idea. It's all speculation right now. But if they want to play it on the on the aggressive side, it's a great opportunity. So now all of a sudden, if you're a pre-existing brand, and I don't want to mention one specific one because I think that everyone feels this to some degree. I think that you have to say, all right, we have bettors that are different ranges in value to us, but we might lose them this weekend, or, we might lose them over the coming weeks as this brand gets off the ground. It's going to be new. It's going to probably be pretty well polished. It has massive brand power behind it with ESPN. So there's got to be some nervousness that not only are people going to go explore a new brand and explore a new app and take advantage of bonuses, But what happens once they do? Are they going to become engaged with that app? Are they going to become engaged with the ESPN brand? Are you going to create, as I talked about in one of our other sessions, are they going to be able to create that all-encompassing experience where you feel like I watch ESPN programming, I feel a relationship and attachment to certain personalities on this station, and oh look, this app does everything I want it to do. I don't need to go back now. And what happens if that happens? So if you're one of the pre-existing brands, I think that you really have to pay attention, not just to new player acquisition offers, because you will be now fighting for new players, and that's a constant battle. But I think it's really about how do we service and enhance the experience of the returning player. And they've had time to prepare for this. I don't think that this is something that it's not like you find out one night and then you've got to adapt on the fly. So this is something I'm sure that some of the other brands have given thought to. And it will be interesting to see what they might do. Just from, a purely speculative standpoint, you would think you would see some more aggressive boosts, maybe some, reimbursements on same game parlays, maybe more flexible boosts. Like one of the things that we've seen with a lot of the operators recently is, it's a 25 to 50% profit boost on a same game parlay, or, same game parlays cross between two contests. And some people don't want to mess with same game parlays. So just the ability to get 100% boost on any market single bet would be big. Just different things to kind of keep people coming back. Of course, the key will be, can you drive home that message to the player? Like, it's cool that you have those things, but am I going to check to make sure that you have them? That's a big question. So, yeah, I mean, I think that if you're a FanDuel or a DraftKings, hey, we're an established brand. We're a great player. We're going to continue to be successful. There's no question about that, right? But is there an opportunity for ESPN Bet to come in here and make an immediate splash and wrestle away some of those players? Sure, and those brands are going to have to be ready for it.
Yeah, major urgency around retention, as you're saying there, right? And one of the places that we've seen where, Jay Snowden, CEO of Penn, has already come out and said this. I believe he spoke about it at G2E in Vegas. ESPN Bet will be lacking in certain features. Now, one of those features that, again, just from knowing other Penn properties, and he even alluded to this as well, is their same game parlay offering, right? So I know you mentioned the same game parlay. There's some people don't want to mess with it. Some people, live by the same game
only
parlay.
Play. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all they play. And for those players specifically, right? If you are one of these other brands, that's going to be one of your areas that I think you're going to have to focus on in keeping that users, really enhancing, not just enhancing, but again, like you mentioned, some of these boosts, right? Giving people these flexible, truly valuable boosts, because, don't get me wrong, not every boost is valuable, right? If your boost, you give somebody a 25% profit boost on a 10-leg parlay, it's got to be minimum 10 legs. Is that valuable? I would argue no. You're going to lose that bet.
Well, and the other thing is, I think that there's short-term considerations and long-term considerations. So one of the things that I think that sportsbooks, need to get better at is catering to individual players. Now, certainly you have certain users that come in and they bet a lot of money, larger bets, and you're going to do a little bit more for those players. You're going to sweeten the pot. You're going to give them better incentives. Maybe you're going to give them reload bonuses, things like that. But what I think that long-term is going to be a differentiating factor for some of these sports books is looking at the tendencies and behaviors of individual players. Here's not just a boost. Like, let's say I don't care about the NBA or I don't wager on the NBA. Well, I log into an app and here's a 50% boost on NBA Tuesday night basketball. Oh, I don't care about that. It's not useful to me. I'm not interested. But if the app learns what I care about, learns about which players I care about, which teams or games or the patterns of my betting behavior, and they are able to cater specific offers to me, I think that that's a big win and a big way to differentiate long term. Short term, though, what these operators have to answer is, how do we make sure that we don't lose players between the launch date through Thanksgiving weekend, which I think is going to be a big opportunity for ESPN Bet? How do we make sure we don't lose them on those Monday night football games? And how do we make sure that we don't use them really going all the way through the remainder of the NFL calendar? and through the Super Bowl. I think it's a critical time. ESPN Bet, when they come in, they've got to come in hot. Like I know it doesn't happen overnight. You don't go from, current market share to 20%, which is what they want to get to. But I do think that this is a really important time to sort of, for these competitors to stave it off. And they're going to have to do something, because I don't think you can have a good product, and they do. A lot of these competitors do have good products. There's no question about it. But I don't know that you can just kind of go status quo. And if they do, maybe they have a lot of analytics and they have research that suggests that they'll be fine. And that may be true. But it would seem, from just an outsider perspective, using common sense, that they're going to have to step the game up a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of communication from some of these operators around the same game parlay moving forward. Because, again, just from my knowledge of the other Penn properties, they're going to come out with they refer to it as Parlay Plus, and that was also in one of their decks that they shared. It's there. You can put player props into your same game parlay, but there's no alt lines in there. You can't go and take Mahomes to throw for 200 yards at a minus 700 or anything to start boosting up that same game parlay. You get the lines that are there. There's no moving from it. So that is going to be a slightly lesser product at launch. As Snowden mentioned there, I'm sure they're going to work on that. They're going to get it to the level it needs to be. But that communication, I think, is going to be very in your face from these other operators. And you mentioned the Super Bowl there. I think that's a really interesting one, because in the past, especially lately, what we've seen from the Super Bowl is, and I mean, this is just kind of common sense here, right? You whatever Super Bowl party you're at, watch party you're at, you have non-bettors stepping up to the plate for the Super Bowl to place a bet on, what will Rihanna be wearing, for the halftime show, things like that, right? They're stepping up to the plate and making random bets, and they're not going to come back next week to bet on NBA. They're not going to come back. They're not going to be there in the summer to bet MLB with you, right? So I'm very interested to see if ESPN cares for those people to try to capture, market share, essentially, right?
Sure.
And if they care about them and they try to really bring them in, what's the answer from the other operators? Do they all of a sudden care a little bit more for those people as well? I think that's going to be a super interesting part here of the next few months ahead.
Then you obviously have the natural link between ESPN as a brand and, the sports fan. And so it's been a natural landing point for the likes of DraftKings and FanDuel to advertise through ESPN properties. And, they've previously, ESPN had to deal with Caesars. They were the exclusive odds provider for, Sports Center, a lot of their daily wagering programming. What happens now, right? And I know that some of these questions have been answered to at least some degree, but I do think that there's some uncertainty here about, hey, are we going to see other sports books advertise, period, or are they going to advertise with as much of, with as much enthusiasm or with as much frequency as they have, or will they say, hey, we're not, how does it work? If you're ESPN, do you want that programming or do you want that advertising because it runs against your own betting property? And at the same time, if you're a competitor, do you want to give ESPN your money to help them further grow? And so it creates an interesting dynamic. Ultimately, you want to get to where the eyeballs are, but it really does sort of remain to be seen how the advertising, aftermath is going to shake out here.
Fox, ABC, NBC might be pretty big winners at the end of this. Like you said, if ESPN decides, hey, or like you said, if the operators just decide we don't want to continue stuffing the pockets of ESPN by paying them to advertise on their platforms, what type of deals do we see here with Fox, ABC, NBC, these other networks carrying the games?
One thing that I do believe one thing I do believe that some of these operators, I think they saw this coming to some extent. And, you've seen DraftKings make an investment in podcasts and starting to create sports content that has big followings. Some of the personalities that they've done partnerships with here, I think, speak to that. FanDuel obviously is making an investment in content. Kay Adams moves from the NFL Network. She has her own daily show over there now. It's quite popular. They've started to get into the content space, and that is going to help. But I mean, if we're being honest here right now, ESPN has a significant advantage. Not only do they have the rights to the NBA, the NHL, and all four. They have all four major sports right now. So not only are you showing the games, which gives you an advantage, but also just the scope of their content. So if you're somebody that's around in the morning and you like the daily debate shows with Stephen A. Smith, if you're somebody that wants to watch the highlights, if you like the pregame programming, if you like the stuff after work hours where you're watching, Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption, there's just so many different avenues. And so it'll also be interesting to see, does DraftKings and FanDuel, do they continue to make an investment and in content and try to play the content game as well? So it's just a fascinating thing. One of the overarching points, I know we're still in speculation mode here ahead of launch, but one thing we do know is that this is going to shake things up. This is not something that just happens and everyone says, whatever. We've had some operators get into the game. Like, we've gotten some operators into these more mature markets and even new markets. And that they're going to have a hard time sticking. That, hey, this brand, how are they going to compete with some of the monsters of the industry? And in time, that skepticism is typically well-founded. This is different. This is a different animal and with a huge investment behind it. And that there's going to be a massive shakeup here. It's going to be truly fascinating to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I thought the Fanatics announcement, them purchasing PointsBet. I mean, we even saw DraftKings throw a bid out there to again, don't necessarily know what their plan was there, but it's probably safe to speculate it was to drive the price up, maybe delay it, stall it. That one shook up the industry a little bit, and that's still to come. Right? We've yet to really see Fanatics truly launch to this point. Now you've got ESPN Bet in place here. Like you said, I mean, there's no place for comfort right now. Every operator is going to be on edge. But like you said as well, if you're a consumer in this market, if you are a bettor, this is really encouraging. I would say these are, really exciting times ahead. Any complaints you've had, anything you have felt is missing from the market, this alone, ESPN Bet alone launching, I think is going to help solve many of those. You're going to have each operator trying to latch on to some of these unique features, these concerns amongst bettors, trying to speak and serve the bettor the best way they can. Because I mean, that's ultimately that's the best retention plan, in my opinion. Right? I know you mentioned some of the boosts, and that goes with it, right? Serving the bettor in the best way possible. So really exciting times ahead for bettors. Everybody in the industry is watching closely here. Again, ESPN Bet launching November 14th. Very excited about it. We'll be back with more ESPN Bet in the future. Thanks for listening, everybody.